Understanding the Bible can be incredibly difficult. Sometimes it seems like the Old Testament is a completely different story than the New Testament. But what if I told you there's actually a way to make sense of both as part of the same story? All we have to do is learn to understand the story the way the Bible's original readers would have understood it. We need to learn to think like an ancient person. It's not easy though, because we're from a different culture. We're from a modern culture. We need to understand to see the world the way they saw it, the original readers of the story. We need to learn what words meant to them, not what they mean to us. We need to be able to recognize their metaphors and symbols. It's all part of the Bible's original context, and it's the key to understanding the stories in the Bible. So let's wipe the slate clean and revisit the main storyline of the Bible as an ancient person would have understood it. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. He then began to organize the world so it could sustain life. God wanted to create a family. He actually already had a family though. They're what we call angels today, but in the Old Testament, they were called something else. The gods, or the sons of God. You'll see them in Job chapter 38, verses 4 through 7. And that tells us that the sons of God watched as God created the earth. These spiritual beings were not as powerful as the one true God, but they were God's initial family. God wanted to have a human family though, so he created humans named Adam and Eve. They lived in a paradise called the Garden of Eden. Eden is an important concept too. It's a place where the spiritual realm and the physical realm overlapped. Originally, heaven and earth came together in Eden in one place. Humans were given a purpose too. It says in the Bible that humans were created in the image of God. And all that really means is that humans were made to be God's representatives on the earth. So things started out how they were meant to be. Humans lived with God and the gods. But remember, the gods are just what we call angels today. There's only one being like God. But this is what God's family originally looked like, until one of the gods went rogue. For better or worse, God gave both humans and the angels freedom of choice. There was only one rule in Eden. Adam and Eve were not allowed to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. In fact, God told humans that if they ate from this tree, they would die. But one of the sons of God interfered with humans. A spiritual being in the form of a serpent tempted Adam and Eve to eat the fruit from the forbidden tree. Why? We don't really know, but in ancient times, Jews believed the serpent was jealous of humans. He may have liked God's family better when it was just the angels and God, so he devised a plan to get humans killed or banished from the garden and undermine everything God was doing. The serpent would tempt Adam and Eve into breaking the only rule in Eden, knowing full well that God said the penalty would be death. The serpent started a rebellion within the family, and humans participated. This is the story of humanity's first sin. They did something that caused chaos and dysfunction within the family of God. When Adam and Eve broke Eden's only rule, when they ate from the tree, they essentially joined the serpent's rebellion against what God was doing, against the family. It's a mystery, though, as to whether or not God would have forgiven them if they had just taken responsibility for their choice to eat the fruit. Nobody knows for sure. It's interesting to think about, but when God asked Adam and Eve about it, they made the situation even worse. They both blamed someone else. Adam blamed Eve, even though he knew that God had said the penalty for breaking this rule was death. So did he blame Eve to save his own life, knowing Eve might be killed? I don't know. It's not his finest moment. The serpent's plan was working though, and it was causing all kinds of chaos, and God's family was starting to unravel. Luckily, God didn't kill either of them, but he did banish humans from the garden, where they would eventually die. They no longer lived in the same place with God and the angels. So one might say the spiritual realm and the physical realm split apart, mostly. We'll still see some traffic from that spiritual realm, but nothing like what we saw in Eden. Only the occasional glimpse of the other side. A miracle here, an angel there. The rest of the Bible tells the story of what God did to restore the family he had made. Adam and Eve had basically betrayed God and joined his enemy, but God wouldn't leave them without a way back into the family. Although they would eventually die, God would create a way for death to be undone. This is the main storyline of the entire Bible, the restoration of humans into God's family and the death of death. One day God will reunite the spiritual world and the physical world, undoing the damage caused by the serpent, because God wants to bring his whole family back together, at least those who want to be a part of it. But until then, a cycle began. Some of the angels didn't seem to like humans. They continued to intervene like the serpent did, and a spiritual battle ensued. Humans would continue to relive the incident with the serpent over and over and over again in different forms. Today, modern readers sometimes have trouble spotting the spiritual battle taking place throughout the Bible. They forget that there's a second world, a spiritual world, and these are the supernatural events we see. Evil angels on the other side, they're constantly attacking the human race, trying to kill them, trying to break up God's family or rule over humans as gods. When the spiritual realm gets left out of the story, the Bible stops making sense. Then all we're left with is a God that looks very scary and very angry because we've taken the villain out of the story. But don't worry, we're going to rediscover the story as it was originally understood by ancient readers. If you enjoyed this video, hit subscribe and hit that notification bell so you'll see when we release future parts of this video series, and you can learn the rest of the story the way ancient readers would have understood it. So we'll see you next time, and take care.